garden of small deaths, La Isla de las Muñecas, my uncle Don Julián hung the first doll 3 days after he found the girl's body floating in the canal. The porcelain head cracked like an egg, one eye missing, dress rotted to tatters. He suspended it from the huge oak tree with fishing line, and when I asked him why, he said, "She wants companions." I was 12. I didn't understand then that he meant the dead girl, not the doll. By the time I understood, it was too late. The island had already begun its transformation. What started as one doll became 10, became 50, became hundreds. They hung from every branch, nailed to every tree trunk, propped against the Chinampa walls like a plastic congregation. Limbless bodies, heads without eyes, eyes without heads. A garden of small deaths blooming in the perpetual twilight of Xochimilco's canals. People said my uncle went mad. They were right, but not in the way they thought. He didn't lose his mind. He traded it for hers. The island sits in the canals of Xochimilco like a rotten tooth in a beautiful mouth. 40 minutes by Trajanera from the main docks, past the floating gardens where tourists drink micheladas and mariachis play for pesos. The Chinampas there are maintained, productive, and alive. Ours was different. Our island had been in the family for generations, since before the conquest, when Xochimilco was still the Venice of the Aztec world. My great-great-grandfather grew flowers there for Moctezuma's palace. My grandfather grew vegetables and sold them in La Merced. My uncle Don Julián grew nothing but grief. He moved to the island after his daughter died. My cousin Lupita, 8 years old, drowned in the family pool while he was at work, and his wife was at the market. An accident, a tragedy, the kind of thing that breaks families into before and after. His wife left him, couldn't look at him without seeing the empty space where their daughter should have been. Don Julián retreated to the island, to the Chinampa that had been growing corn and squash, and stopped growing anything except silence. For 2 years, he lived there alone. We thought he was healing, learning to be human again. We were wrong. He was listening. The morning he found the body, I was with him. My mother had sent me to check on him, bring him groceries, and make sure he was eating. I poled through the green water while Don Julián sat in the back, smoking, staring at nothing. We rounded the bend to his island, and there she was, a little girl floating face down in the canal, her white dress billowing around her like a drowned flower. For a moment, Don Julián's face went absolutely blank. Then he started screaming. Not words, just sound. Raw and animal and wrong. I pulled her from the water. She was maybe 7, maybe 8. Dark hair matted with algae. Skin gone waxy. She'd been dead for days. Don Julián wouldn't let me call the police. He kept saying, "She came here. She came to me. She wants something. Tio, she's dead. We need to." "She's not dead." His eyes were fever bright. "Listen, can't you hear her?" I heard nothing but wind in the willows, water lapping at Chinempa's edge. "She's singing," he whispered, "like Lupita used to sing. That song is about a little boat. Remember?" I remembered. "Había una vez un barquito chiquitito." There was once a tiny little boat. The girl's mouth was closed, blue still. She wasn't singing anything, but Don Julián smiled like he'd just heard the most beautiful music in the world. I went to get the authorities. By the time I returned with the police, the body was gone. Don Julián said the canal took her back, that the water wanted to keep her. They searched for 3 days and found nothing, no body, no evidence, no missing child report that matched. They decided I'd been mistaken. A log, a bundle of clothes, something that looked like a body but wasn't. But I knew what I'd seen. And when I returned to the island a week later, I saw the first doll hanging from the tree, spinning slowly in the wind. And I knew Don Julián hadn't been mistaken either. The girl was still there. She was lonely, Don Julián explained, adding a second doll to the tree. This one had both eyes but no arms, down there in the water, all alone. She asked me for friends. "Tio, you need to come home. Mama is worried. I'm worried. This is home." He tied the fishing line with steady hands. "And I'm not alone anymore. Neither is she." "Who is she? Did you find out her name?" He smiled. "She doesn't remember her name. She's been in the water too long. The canal forgets names, but that's okay. I gave her Lupita's. The wrongness of it made my skin crawl. You can't do that. She's not Lupita." "I know." His voice was gentle, patient, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. "But Lupita is gone, and her name was just sitting there, unused. This girl needs it. She needs everything Lupita had: a name, a father, friends. So I am giving it to her." "That's not how it works." "Then how does it work, Sabrino?" He turned to face me, and his eyes were terrible, not mad, but certain. Absolutely, unshakably certain. "You tell me, how do you keep the dead from drowning forever? How do you save someone who's already been lost? The priests say prayer. The doctors say time. But I say, you give them what they're asking for. You listen when they speak. Dead girls don't speak. This one does." He looked past me over my shoulder at something I couldn't see. His face softened. "She says you don't believe. That's okay. Most people don't hear them, but they're always talking, the drowned ones. This canal is full of them, centuries of them. The Aztecs made blood sacrifices here. The Spanish threw enemies in. During the Revolution, bodies floated down from the city. All those voices, all that loneliness." He hung another doll, and another. By the time I left that day, there were 7 dolls swaying in the trees, their plastic eyes catching the dying light, their mouths open in silent screams or smiles. I couldn't tell which. The dolls multiplied like a disease. Don Julián found them everywhere, floating in the canal, washed up on the Chinempa's banks, left at the island's edge by currents or tourists or ghosts. He took them all. Broken Barbies and baby dolls, porcelain heirlooms, and cheap plastic toys. He hung them from trees, nailed them to walls, propped them in the crooks of branches. The island transformed. What had been green and growing became a forest of watching eyes. At night, when I brought supplies, I could feel them staring. Hundreds of plastic faces turned toward me like sunflowers toward the sun, tracking my movement with eyes that shouldn't have been able to move. Don Julián grew thinner, stranger. He stopped eating regularly, stopped sleeping in his shack. I'd find him at dawn standing waist-deep in the canal, talking to the water in a language I didn't recognize, not Spanish, not Nahuatl, something older and wetter and wrong. "She's teaching me," he said when I asked. The old words, the water words, the ones we spoke before we forgot how to drown. Before we forgot how to drown. Tio, that doesn't make sense. We used to know, he said dreamily. Back when we lived in Aslan, the place of herons, before we came to this valley, we knew how to breathe water, how to swim between worlds. The Spanish made us forget, made us afraid of drowning. But she remembers. She's teaching me again. I tried to get him help. Brought doctors who said he was delusional, traumatized, needed medication and therapy. Don Julián laughed at them. "You can't cure grief with pills," he said. "You can only drown it or let it drown you." I chose differently. The family wanted to commit him. My mother begged me to convince him to leave the island, but I didn't. Because sometimes, late at night when I brought supplies, I thought I heard it too. A girl's voice singing from the water. Había una vez un barquito chiquitito. And once, just once, I saw her. It was 3 years after Don Julián found the first body. The island had become famous by then La Isla de las Muñecas. Tourists came to gawk, to take photos, to buy beers from the few vendors brave enough to pull their clothes. My uncle charged them 20 pesos to land, told them stories about the haunted dolls, and played the eccentric hermit for their cameras. But after they left, after the sun set and the canals went quiet, he became someone else. Something else. I came late one night, bringing the medicine my mother insisted he needed. The island was dark, lit only by the moon reflecting off the canal. The dolls hung silent, motionless, but somehow I felt them breathing. Watching. Don Julián stood at the water's edge, talking. His voice was soft, tender, the way he used to talk to Lupita when she was small. "Yes, Mija, I know you're cold. I know you're scared. But look, I brought more friends. See, this one has yellow hair like you wanted. And this one can close her eyes so you can pretend she's sleeping, not dead." That's when I saw her. Rising from the canal like steam, like memory, like something that was water trying to remember how to be a girl. Her face was pale and indistinct, features running like wet paint. Her hair floated around her head in a dark halo. Her white dress billowed in currents that didn't exist. She reached for Don Julián with hands that were more suggestion than substance. And he reached back without fear, without hesitation. "I know, Corazon," he whispered. I know you want to come home. Soon, when we have enough friends. When the army is ready. The thing turned to look at me. Her eyes were holes. Her mouth was a canal. When she spoke, water poured from her lips. He promised, she said in a voice like drowning. He promised I wouldn't be alone. He promised to fill the island with children so I'd have friends forever. Look at all my friends. Every single doll on the island turned their heads to look at me. Hundreds of plastic faces, their necks creaking, their glass eyes gleaming. And they smiled. I ran, stumbled to and pulled away with shaking hands. Behind me, I heard Don Julián calling, "Sabrino, don't be afraid, she likes you. She wants you to stay." I didn't go back for 2 weeks. When I finally returned, Don Julián was different. Calmer, almost peaceful. He'd stopped eating entirely. His skin had taken on a strange translucence, like wax paper over bones. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if underwater. "She's almost ready," he said. "Almost strong enough." Strong enough for what? To come back. He smiled. "The dolls are vessels, you see. Each one holds a piece of her, a memory, a fragment. When there are enough, when the island is full, she'll be able to reassemble herself, walk on land again, breathe air. That's insane. Is it?" He picked up a doll, headless, limbless, just a torso. The Aztecs knew. They put pieces of the gods in every temple, every pyramid. Obsidian mirror, Huitzilopochtli's hummingbird feathers. You scatter the divine across space, and it becomes real again, pulls itself together through belief, through worship, through blood. She's not a god. She's a dead girl. What's the difference? He hung the torso from a branch. We make gods from our grief. We always have. Tonantzin became the Virgin Mary. Mictacassahuatl became La Katrina. And this girl, this drowned, forgotten, nameless girl, she's becoming something too. Something necessary. Necessary for what? For remembering. His eyes were distant, fixed on something I couldn't see. For witnessing. Someone has to remember the drowned ones, Sabrino. Someone has to speak their names. The canal forgets, the city forgets, the world forgets. But doll stalls don't forget. They're made to be played with, dressed up, given names and stories. They're perfect vessels for memory. You're using them to bring back a ghost. I'm using them to make amends. He turned to me, and for a moment, I saw past the madness to the man beneath my uncle who taught me to fish, who carried me on his shoulders, who loved his daughter so much it broke him. I couldn't save Lupita. I wasn't there when she needed me. But this girl, maybe I can save her. Maybe I can give her what she's asking for, to not be forgotten, to not drown alone. And when she comes back, when she's strong enough, what then? He smiled. Then she won't be alone anymore, and neither will I. Don Julián died on a Tuesday. April 17th, 2001. They found him floating in the canal beside his island, his arms spread wide, his face peaceful. The official report said heart attack. Drowning. Natural causes for a man who spent too much time in the water. saw the body. I saw the smile. I saw the way his fingers were entwined with a fishing line, as if he'd been holding hands with something when he went under. The island had over 1,500 dolls by then. Every tree groaned with them. Every surface crawled with plastic limbs and glass eyes. The local government wanted to clear them, calling it a hazard, a blight. But the tourists loved it. Isla de las Muñecas became famous. A dark attraction. A place to take selfies with haunted dolls and buy tchotchkes from vendors. The family decided to maintain it. Keep the dolls. Make Don Julián's madness into a memorial. I was chosen as the caretaker. I should have said no. I should have burned the whole thing down. Let the canal reclaim the island. Let the dolls rot and return to plastic and dust. But I didn't, because the first night I slept there, I heard her singing. 22 years later, I am still here, still hanging dolls, still listening to the voice in the water that sounds like drowning, like memory, like every lost girl who ever disappeared into this canal and was never found. She is stronger now. I can see her more clearly. Sometimes she walks among the dolls, touching them gently, like a little girl playing with her toys. Sometimes she stands at the water's edge and beckons to me, inviting me to join her, to learn the old words, to remember how to drown. I am old now. My hair is white. My hands shake when I hang the new dolls that wash up, and they do wash up constantly, as if the canal itself is feeding them to the island, as if something in the water wants the collection to grow. The tourists think it's charming, creepy, Instagram-worthy. They don't understand that every doll is a prayer. Every doll is a witness. Every doll holds a fragment of something that refuses to stay buried in mud and water and forgetting. Sometimes I think Don Julián was right. Sometimes I think this is necessary work, remembering the drowned ones, giving them form, keeping them company in the long dark between death and whatever comes after. Other times, I think we're building something terrible. A congregation of grief so vast, it will eventually achieve critical mass and pull itself together into something that walks and talks and hungers. But I keep hanging the dolls anyway, because what else can I do? She asks so sweetly. She sounds so much like a child who just wants friends. And when she calls me Tio, when she sings the song about the little boat, I almost believe she is Lupita. Come back, come home, finally at peace. Almost. Last night, I dreamed I was underwater. Not drowning breathing it, the way Don Julián said we used to. The canal was vast, infinite, full of voices. Every person who ever drowned in Xochimilco was there, singing in harmony, their bodies bloated and beautiful, their hair floating like seaweed gardens. And at the center, surrounded by dolls that moved and breathed and laughed, was the girl. Not a ghost anymore, not a memory, fully formed, fully real. Her eyes were black as canal water. Her smile showed too many teeth, Thank you, she said, for all the friends, for all the memories, for making me real again. What are you? I asked. I am all of them, she said. Every drowned girl, every forgotten child, every small death the city swallowed and pretended not to see. I am the one who fell from Chinampas, the ones who were pushed, the ones who jumped, the ones who were thrown. I am every little girl the water took and the world forgot. She reached for me with hands that multiplied as they moved. Dozens of little girl hands, hundreds, thousands. And now that I'm strong enough, now that I have enough friends, I'm going to make sure no one forgets again. What do you want? To be remembered. Her smile widened, to be seen, to be heard. The dolls were just the beginning. Each one is a door. Each one is a window. Each one is a way for us to reach through, to touch the living world, to remind you that we're still here, still waiting, still wanting. Wanting what? To not be alone. She was close now, her breath cold and wet. To have friends, to have a family, to have someone who stays. Her hands touched my face. Your uncle understood. That's why he came to us willingly. That's why he swims with us now, happy, finally reunited with his Lupita. And you will too, eventually, when you're ready, when the island is full enough, when our army is complete. I woke up coughing water. I am writing this as a warning. If you visit Isla de las Muñecas, if you come to take pictures and laugh at the creepy dolls, remember this. They are not decorations. They are not art. They are vessels. Every doll holds a piece of something that drowned and refuses to stay drowned. Every doll is a door. Every doll is a window. And when you stand among them, when you pose for your selfies and videos, you are standing in the presence of an assembled God, one made of grief and water and the terrible loneliness of small deaths. She is almost complete now. I can feel it. The island groans with the weight of her. At night, the dolls move, not much, just enough. A head turning, an arm lifting, eyes opening that should stay forever closed. Soon she will walk. Soon she will breathe. Soon she will leave the island and wade into Mexico City, carrying her army of dolls, her congregation of small deaths, her legion of the drowned and forgotten. And when she does, she will go looking for the ones who were never found, the missing girls, the forgotten children, the ones who vanished into canals and rivers and lakes and were written off as runaways, accidents, statistics. She will find them. She will remember them. She will give them dolls of their own, because that's what gods do. They witness. They remember, they avenge. My hands are translucent now, like Don Julian's were at the end. My lungs feel full of water, even when I breathe air. I hear the singing constantly, not just one voice, but hundreds, thousands, a choir of drowned girls calling me home. I hung a new doll this morning. She has Lupita's eyes. Tomorrow I will hang another, and another, and another, until the island is full, until she is complete, until we all remember How to Drown. Había una vez un barquito chiquitito. There was once a tiny little boat. It couldn't sail, couldn't sail, couldn't sail, until one day, after 7 weeks had passed, the little boat learned to drown, and in drowning, it finally learned to sail. Fin, author's note. La Isla de las Muñecas is a real place in the Xochimilco canals of Mexico City. Don Julián Santana Barrera was a real person who hung dolls on the island from approximately 1950 until his death by drowning in 2001. The island remains a popular, if unsettling, tourist attraction to this day. Whether the dolls are truly haunted, or whether they simply hold the accumulated weight of one man's grief, is a question each visitor must answer for themselves.